ever since I was a kid, I was super connected with nature, and I was in Boy Scouts, and when I was like 5, he went up north into Northern California, which is near the Redwoods. You get a lot of like hippies up there. This is kind of more free and open hippie lifestyle, I think, did kind of imprint upon me. And just near where the bakery was in Hopland, there's this place called like Real Solar Living. And it's one of these like they have all these alternative building styles that they've experimented with on the grounds, and they're into solar energy super far back. So for me, I stayed connected with nature through geology, which is what I majored in. Eventually, after my first job where I was in the field and kind of transitioning to the office, I did everything I could to retain some autonomous ability. And so I was doing research projects outside. And so in 2020, which was a big shift for a lot of people, I had direct activations with that astrologically. So there's some purpose to my journey. Jupiter Saturn on my midheaven Saturn combo in Aquarius, that was the great mutation, 200-year basically new cycle start, or 150 plus years. I just found out recently that Saturn is also representative of the scientists, centric scientists. But Capricorn's also like the hard worker. I'm right on the cusp with that MC, which is your spotlight in the public, and the Saturn combo. And so Saturn comes by, Jupiter comes in, they conjunct together with the great mutation into air, into intellect, into mind, archetypal energies. And 2021, I sat with some plant medicine in the mountains of Washington. I was making a decision, do I like continue down this career path because I had a new job lined up? Or do I just like bugger that and just start traveling around and exploring the world and stuff? And as a result, the more conscious you become of something, more you can work with it too. You're not just unconsciously following the rhythms of fate, you could say. You're kind of working with them co-creatively. And so that's been an important aspect of the journey. And then in 2024, Jupiter-Uranus hit that same point again. Everything seems to basically have lined up, and these activations came in, and I wasn't aware of them at first consciously, but I became more so as I studied into it. Basically, you know, these Tesla quotes about everything is vibration, frequency. It's so true. That really helped change things. And then making these educational videos on it, which for me is like a way for me to cement the information in my mind, that really started to resonate with a lot of people.
Welcome back to Elevated Conversations, where we explore the leading edge of galactic consciousness, human evolution, and the awakening of our collective soul. Today, we are honored to be joined by Stefan Burns, a visionary thinker, author, and pioneering voice in multidimensional awareness. His work bridges the realms of ancient wisdom and cutting-edge cosmic research, guiding humanity through this pivotal moment of transformation. Together, we'll explore the rapid acceleration of human evolution, the expansion of galactic consciousness, and the profound significance of recent spacecraft sightings entered into our solar system. Stefan brings a wealth of knowledge, profound insight, and the ability to connect the dots between what is happening in the stars and the awakening unfolding here on Earth. Stay tuned as we journey beyond the ordinary into the extraordinary with Stefan Burns on today's Elevated Conversations podcast.
Stefan Burns, it's great to have you on Awakening Education, because I realized when I was preparing for this, I really never thought I'd ever be following anyone who was talking about geophysics, earthquakes, seismology, etc., etc. Normally, from my perspective, I'd go, oh, boring, or people associated with that topic, boring. How could I ever be interested in that? And then Roxy and I found you, and you were talking about the science, but then the spirituality aspect tied in. And then we just liked your sense of humor, and you're not taking yourself and all of it too seriously. So congratulations on your channel. Tell us about, first of all, can't be just us, how's your channel taken off?
Yeah, well, thanks for having me on. And yeah, I'm a little different because and I think this is why the channel's been taking off, because I cover these science topics, and I'm not the end ultimate authority on any of this stuff. Certainly there's people in every single niche that I cover that are more technical, and sometimes I make mistakes. Like in the video a couple days ago, I called Hurricane Aaron a Category 1 earthquake because I was just talking about earthquakes. And I was talking about the connections sometimes between cyclones and earthquakes. And so you get these little slips sometimes. And, you can't beat yourself up over it or, go nuts. Like, oh, I'm going to take the video down now because you have one slip up. But some people, like the ultra precise, like left brain people, they can't just let go of some of these things. And in general, society, I'd say in general, can't let go of that. And so it's hard for them to expand into the greater subjectivity of the world. And that's just something I guess I've kind of always been in, but I have a really strong analytical sense to me too. And I have all these different interests across so many domains. So maybe if you get the premier solar physicists with me in the room, we could probably chat a lot and they may know more, and I'm glad they do. But then the moment you introduce biology, they're completely lost. They're like a fish out of water. Whereas I can hang with that bio guy too, and I can also hang with the earthquake dude, and I can hang with the hippie Rasta guy. So, it's really about all. I just see things as holistic, and if we go by some of the different ideas laid out by countless people across time, there's certain first principles that exist, which are true across all domains. If they aren't true across all domains, they're not a first principle. And if you can discover or learn what those are, and you'll never do it to the fullest of their ability because they're beyond our comprehension, but as much as you can then take one first principle, and because it can't be disproven somewhere else against a first principle, you can apply that to other areas. It's actually kind of like a shortcut to learning things across multiple domains. And then you want to make sure you like self-check yourself and everything. But that, I think, is why the channel's done well, because we do all that. We have some fun, but really I'd say the core and the bedrock of the channel is like the spiritually open-minded people. And there's a lot of people that come in, they're like, this is a great science channel. And then a couple of videos later, they're like, oh, he does meditations and stuff.
Oh,
I'm
he's
like,
doing the sound bowl. What?
yeah. It wasn't a science channel. Like, we cover a lot of in-depth science. And so you may watch it and be like, wow, that's really great. But then you may have a little bit of a shock when you realize that at times we talk about, metaphysics, and we also do sound healings and a whole bunch of things. But that is, I feel like, the direction we need to go. We need to like kind of reclaim that aspect of humanity and subjectivity in the world, and basically what we did in the past. And so it seems to be resonating with a lot more people than it's not resonating with. So
Love it. I was very excited to have you on the channel because I follow space weather, and I realized that there was something with the movements of the sun and the Schumann resonance and space weather and our vibration. As you know, we're all water and we're reflective of the energy. So I started following that quite closely and then came across you a couple of years ago. And I loved your energy, and I love that you touched on all of the different areas. So very excited to have you on the channel. And the family yesterday, we're having Sunday afternoon with the family, and they're like, oh yeah, he's a legend. And da, da, da. How funny is it that we just had an earthquake here and we're meant to do the podcast because it's the 18th of August. You're in Hawaii, we're in Australia, and we had that earthquake just off the Sunshine Coast. We're exactly where it was. We were having the full shakes and everything, and we thought, that isn't that
wow.
funny. That's alignment there that we're going to dive into that. But firstly, to get started, Stefan, I'd love to hear about your awakening journey. I know that we don't just have it. You would have fallen into it maybe through your work with your studies and then opening up to maybe higher consciousness. How did that occur? Because you're always talking on the podcast about all the different domains and all the scientific stuff, a little bit of spirituality, but not your personal journey. Are you open to sharing that with us?
Yeah, definitely. And I mean, I do share a little bit at times. I do think kind of in general that some of the mistakes that people make if they're like trying to grow a channel or something like that is they focus too much on themselves, and they also get too much into the mundane. Like, and this is what I had for breakfast, and normally I have hash browns, so I do this instead. And it's like, listen, folks, like no one cares about this crazy little ritual that you have. Like, give us the meat and potatoes. It's different. Some people really, there are some personal celebrities out there, you could say, but in general, I think it's better to kind of put yourself in the back seat, and your energy is going to shine through anyways, and your beliefs are going to shine through anyway. So you don't need to like purposely like be super forward with it. But I have no problem sharing, and when it comes up, I do. Uh, I mean, ever since I was a kid, I was super connected with nature, and I was in Boy Scouts, and also as a kid, after my mom and dad divorced when I was like 5, he went up north into Northern California. Now, the Bay Area is already Northern California, but there's also like true NorCal, as I call it, like which is near the redwoods. You get a lot of like hippies up there, and so we would have these like Rastas walk in who are growing up in the Emerald Triangle because my dad, we it was a bakery and he had bread that would last like a week or more due to it being baked in like like an original stone oven, like medieval style. And so thick crust, it would last forever. They would come in like with cash, like buy $200 worth of food and take it with them up into the hills where they're doing their grows. And so it's not like I ever saw that or anything, but this is kind of more free and open hippie lifestyle, I think did kind of imprint upon me. And just near where the bakery was in Hopland, there's this place called, it's like Real Solar Living, something like that, or Real Solar. And it's one of these like they have all these alternative building styles that they've experimented with on the grounds, and they were into solar energy super far back decades ago. And so that all kind of imprinted, but then you go kind of into a normal career path. Though for me, I stayed connected with nature through geology, which is what I majored in. But then eventually after my first job where I was in the field and kind of transitioning to the office, I did everything I could to retain some autonomous ability. And so I was doing research projects outside and things. I've always just kind of been like, well, if they fire me, they fire me. I'm going to do what I want. And that worked out for me. But it also did start to feel claustrophobic, and the system started to like, the system is the system. And so in 2020, which was a big shift for a lot of people, I had direct activations with that astrologically. Looking back, I now know that. I've actually had a tremendous amount of direct, really powerful synodic cycle activations. So there's some purpose to my journey. Jupiter, Saturn on my midheaven Saturn combo in Aquarius, that was the great mutation, 200-year basically new cycle start, or 150 plus years. And I just found out recently that Saturn is also representative of the scientist archetype. Aquarius is kind of the eccentric scientist. And so I have that right there, but Capricorn's also like the hard worker. I'm right on the cusp with that MC, which is your spotlight in the public, and the Saturn combo. And so Saturn comes by, Jupiter comes in, they conjunct together with the great mutation into air, into intellect, into mind, archetypal energies. Saturn saying, okay, it's time to make this happen. This is what you're meant to do. It's destiny, right? And then Jupiter's like, and we're going to blow it up. Then immediately afterwards, Pluto started hovering over that, transforming everything. And 2021, I sat with some plant medicine in the mountains of Washington. I was making a decision: do I like continue down this career path? Because I had a new job lined up, which was like a huge pay bump, and it's like, yeah, that'd be good. But being a good person, I don't want to like quit a job 6 months in. You don't want to like let this person down who just spent all this time looking for someone, and so it'd be like a 3-year commitment minimum. Or do I just like bugger that and just start traveling around and exploring the world and stuff? And so with that kind of trip and connecting to nature, I also did a very simple pros cons list. Like I was just laying there in my tent and just like really like put on my right brain, I guess you could say, and it's like pros and cons. And the pros list for the travel and the unknown was so much bigger. So I was like, all right, well, I guess that's what we're gonna do. So I did that, and then yeah, I just kept going with things. I discovered the Schumann resonances before that happened, and I already felt a drive to do more and more research. So again, that was right around the time of that great conjunction, that great mutation with Jupiter, Saturn. I even had the last Jupiter, Saturn conjunction, because this is like the great conjunction cycle, also hit my rising perfectly in the year 2000, which is interesting, when I was like, I guess 9 years old. And then in 2024, Jupiter Uranus hit that same point again, putting a little bit more, if you believe in astrology or take it for what it's worth, but it's just everything seems to basically have lined up and these activations came in, and I wasn't aware of them at first consciously, but I became more so as I studied into it. And as a result, the more conscious you become of something, more you can work with it too. You're not just unconsciously following the rhythms of fate, you could say. You're kind of working with them co-creatively. And so that's been an important aspect of the journey. But learning about all these things, Schumann resonances, space weather, different Earth geophysical energies like seismic hum and more, and just learning also about quantum physics and basically, these Tesla quotes about everything is vibration, frequency. It's so true.
Yeah.
That really helped change things. And then making these educational videos on it, which for me is like a way for me to cement the information in my mind, that really started to resonate with a lot of people. So it worked out well, and keeps me accountable and mindful and just doing the best I can. Not perfect, but just doing the best I can.
You're doing good. We love it. You're flicking around from screen to screen and you're putting it all together, and you get excited when there's something happening and you're like, I said this, it was coming. I read the pattern. We're like, oh, this is good. It's good energy. Congratulations on your awakening and the destiny that you're moving in, and continue to. It's good that you've listened to that, and I can certainly say for myself, this year has been so crazy in terms of planets and taking me for a ride. I mean, we had our awakening 5 years ago now, and we haven't looked back. We were the same. It was either be insurance brokers or walk in this awakening education and stand in our purpose and our mission, which felt so right after ayahuasca. We did ayahuasca and continue to work with the plant medicines as well. But yeah, congratulations. So with cycles then, I know that we're having lots of changes, and I know that we love reading patterns and finding root causal emotions. That's our work. We love seeing the patterns in that. And understanding the consciousness. So with Earth right now, the ring of fire is popping. We had an earthquake here in Australia. What's going on? Tell us what you think is going on and what we can kind of look for in the remaining months of the year.
Yeah, the astrology is interesting because we over thousands of years have built up this pretty good empirical relationship between the position of the planets and just the quality of the time. So it's not that the planets are doing this, it's more that they are just showing us the quality of the time. It's all just cohesively like networked together. This kind of holographic pattern that manifests. That's what it seems to be. And then as we have better and better awareness of these cycles, their past influences, archetypes, how they can evolve, we can then also kind of, guide the future outcomes, which I think is important. So we have this progression that started, well, it's always going, but really kicked off in a big way with Jupiter, Saturn, that great mutation. And then Jupiter went and also hit everything in front of Saturn, which was Pluto, and then also Neptune, and then also Uranus. So boom, boom, boom. We had a quick sequence, and then and that Jupiter Uranus one was 2024. Now we have Saturn coming up for another one, and Saturn is also the second fastest of these outer planets. So Jupiter is the fastest 12-year cycle. Saturn's like 29.5 year. Uranus is 84. Neptune's like 168 or something. So Uranus is moving ahead. Saturn's also going to catch up to it though. And so there's this really nice progression actually going from 2020 all the way to 2032. And then we get this new reset finally in 2040. But I think that is carrying a lot of people forward. Like it woke up a lot of people, us, plenty others, and it's going to continue to go until 2032. So it's kind of important to look at that date, but we're right now in the thick of it with 2025.
Oh yeah.
And then as it relates to in 2026 too, 2026 will be a big year, really big year. But as it relates to the Ring of Fire and just some of these earth energies, we had a few interesting things happen. I would say the Jupiter-Uranus conjunction in Taurus And then just less than a month later, that G5 geomagnetic storm was really big. Solar maxima, of course, just putting tons of energy into this. And then we just had that 8.8 megaquake off the coast of Kamchatka, magnitude 8 something, big earthquake. A little bit of discrepancy on the value, but a magnitude is like huge amount of aftershocks now. So the whole area, that was a big event, but I get the sense that it wasn't like the big event, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Because if you look at the if we get again use astrology as a tool, it happened right around when Saturn and Neptune were nearly conjunct in Aries. But we have the actual conjunction coming up February 2026. So it's almost like that was the main expression, but not, and that there's still something more coming. There's an alignment that we have in January 2026. And so it does seem that something bigger is building up. I think it's going to be volcanic. I think that earthquake is going to, in the long run, be seen to have destabilized a lot of different volcanoes. And which one actually follows through with something big, we'll have to wait and see. But it clearly changed the rhythm of volcanic activity at Kilauea in Hawaii, which is on the same plate, but thousands of kilometers away. It woke up all the volcanoes right there on the Kamchatka Peninsula. And then other volcanoes have been very active in Indonesia, and there's like Volcán de Agua in Guatemala, which we have no known record of eruption for, like historically, that it's been having these really powerful earthquakes, like right basically on the slopes and even sometimes a little further out, but just clustered around that. So it just seems to me that we're going to get some sort of big volcanic eruption at some point. But we'll see. I don't know. But I don't think that earthquake was kind of like we're done.
Yeah.
And it'll probably be along the Ring of Fire. There's some other spots it could be, but I think it's really speaking, again, like the astrology is basically a way to tell the time. I think the Earth also with her energetic events is kind of speaking to that too. And since we're resonant with her, we're from the Earth, evolved on the Earth. I think these sort of events too mirror what's happening within us as well. So a lot of people have been having these earthquake moments, and maybe there's going to be more of a kind of a collective volcanic moment soon. I don't know. I'm not sure you saw my video on 1812, but it seems very similar to that, where we had tons of earthquakes across North America, then volcanic activity started to increase, and then we had Mount Tambora, and boom, the next year is Year Without a Summer. So there just seems to, like, a lot of people have been feeling something kind of under the surface. Is that what you've been feeling yourself, or something else maybe?
Lot of people, like in our group, a lot of people who tune in and they're sensitive, there is this feeling that something is coming. And exactly like you said, there is a feeling like that for a lot of people, whatever it is that is coming. And there's lots of, depends which channel you watch, right? It could be a financial collapse, days of darkness, some sort of tech glitch, everything goes down. In this case, some sort of, event within the planet itself, which seems to make sense. Just from a spiritual perspective for a moment, what a lot of people feel is for that, it's going to be a catalyst for the next stage of the awakening. So some of us who are already on the leading edge, it's like part of our role is to hold stable for that larger group of people who are like floating along with the current of the energy. I would suggest that the leading edge is actively swimming with it. And then there's some people who just stand in the current and say, no matter what, don't confuse me with the facts. My mind's made up, right? Nothing you can do is going to help them. And God bless them, but that's where they're at. So a lot of people we've been chatting to have been feeling something is coming, but in the big picture will be beneficial for humanity, and that there is this link and it all is tied in with one another based on these sort of laws of the universe too. Like you mentioned, everything's vibration and frequency. And if we're sensitive to that, like if we've done the work and we open ourselves up to it, right? That we can feel that and actually listen to these signals that we're getting rather than just ignore them in the noise of life.
Yeah, and I did an I Ching on one of my videos, specifically talking about the really crazy planetary geometry we had recently, which is connected with all this. And it gave me, I Ching is Chinese divination for anyone that's unaware. And it gave me the hexagram, or gave us rather, it was like, a bunch of us on the live stream, the hexagram of shock, which is thunder over thunder. And then it mutated into like opportunity and prosperity, which is very resonant with this prophecy that Ryo Tsuzuki had, which went viral. And she kind of got it right. There was a tsunami that hit Japan in July, but she had this dream, maybe you know, of like the tsunami hitting Japan. It was this really big event, though. That did not happen in July. But then afterwards, there would be this like mass awakening of people. And so with your metaphor of people floating down the river, we're all kind of resonating in the flow. And I think at some point there'll be kind of like a flood that goes down the river and sweeps a lot of people on the banks up. And that resonance is just getting stronger and stronger because the non-believers, or just people that are kind of more focused on just daily life, there's nothing wrong with that. Their energy is chaotic. So it's not coherent between each other. Only like kind of on a societal level is it, everyone's kind of getting in their car, driving, coming back, and that type of deal. But like in a larger, more expansive way, it's effectively non-coherent and chaotic. So it doesn't create a signal. Whereas everyone that is kind of in on this and feels these energies, and we're not all ascended masters, but we're at least working towards that as much as we can, we hope, right? And so we are more in resonance as much as we can be. And that builds and builds and builds. And it's called resonance amplification. And that is going to hit that critical mass. And so I think this shock is going to come through, and it's going to be very Plutonian in nature, and that it just reveals a tremendous amount, like in some way. And then like all these things that have been out there, which people are aware of, but kind of ignore because they're in a survival mindset, will finally, there's so much accumulated weight on the camel's back that this will finally just buckle the knees. And so it's like, we hear about, we're not going to stray into this much, but like there's this Epstein stuff, obviously. There's like the Panama Papers. Like everyone knows that these people in power are just the complete worst people in the world. And it's like, why do we continue to like support them in any way, right? And at some point, that's just totally going to break apart. And people, I think, are going to reclaim their sovereign power individually, and then the collective, because we have built that resonance, will be able to do things coherently in a significant way at the community level, societal level, and even at the world scale. So that if that comes true, which sounds awesome, I think it's going to be great. So we just hope.
Surely that's why we're all back here, right? That was the plan. That was why we're all doing this. I'm sure that's the reward of the Great Awakening and helping that. It sounds beautiful.
Yeah, I love it. There's so many threads between what you were saying that I just feel like really are truly beautiful for people. Like very often, in meditation, I get from my guides, it's like an amazing time to be alive. It's like this is the time where we can connect with one another and we can find our voice, and in conjunction with the timing of the planets, the stars, and the technology to be able to connect, like we're connecting now, we, the ones who are awake and aware and just naturally have that desire to want to share the message of unity and we're all one. As you talk about the people on the bank, if we went to David Hawkins and the scale of consciousness, they're just coming from the place of, right, on the scale of consciousness, using their will, their drive. There's all these channels on whatever, Instagram, talking about being a hustler. And if you hustle and you whip yourself and get up at 4 o'clock in the morning and drop in bed at midnight, even then you're not working hard enough, but then you might be enough, right? And it comes from this place that underlying, they're trying to soothe some sort of false or lack within themselves. The false belief that I am not enough. Somehow I am separate from source, so I've got to find it outside myself. And Maybe it's the title on the job door or the bigger house or the bigger car or whatever that people think are going to help to get them there. And then when we get to this stage where maybe we go get washed off the bank and into the river, or we go along with consciousness a little, we start to realize we're not the story and we're not the grief and the shame and the things that have occurred to us through our life and find that purpose. But in that, life actually becomes easier, not harder, because we're not trying to be something. It's like, I love your story about how probably logically you had all the reasons why it was better to go for the high paying job, have security, you probably got free health, and you probably got a, social security 401k for your retirement and all of that. And you went, no, 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 you know what? Stuff it. I'm going traveling and I'm going to follow my passion. And a lot of people wouldn't do that. But that's now reflective in the work that you do because we can just see it's authentic, right? It's not based on the drive and the will to fulfill a role. You're being you. And when you are just being you, that is a gift, well, first to yourself, because it's so easy. It doesn't take any energy. It's like, hey, I just do what I want and sort of say what I want. And it's like really good. But people
Yeah.
like that. Well, and it's great because
It's true.
we like that too, because we can't get that from anyone else. So on the scale of consciousness, authenticity, which now you tie in with joy, enthusiasm, and you bring in that beautiful masculine and feminine mix. So you've got the scientific background, like from our perspective, we work with the galactic. So it would be the beautiful mix of the Arcturian, the wisdom, the knowledge, the knowing of how there's a science and it all fits together, but then representing for people, letting them know that if they learn to reconnect with their soft side, their divine feminine, which is a reflection of the planet. You were saying so much control and false on the planet. That's the same thing. As we surrender to that soft side and our intuition and our creativity and that those more nuanced activations come through in the mix, our inner senses pick up on more on what's going around us. Our divine masculine learns to trust it and that it's not going to just take over, and the two work together in that beautiful, we could call it the Kundalini up the spine, we could call it that awakening, but it's reflected through in a lot of things that you've been saying so far on the call. And I knew it'd be a great call, but it's like we're loving how it all works together because the outer does reflect the inner. Would you agree? Even on a planetary level.
Yeah, absolutely. And just, I guess, for anyone watching this, a few months ago, I had a dream that was really powerful. I woke up with like just the best feeling from it, and it was all about inspiration. It was just about like one of the best things you could do right now would be to inspire people. And so I'm still working to like increase that throughput too. Because I have my normal broadcast and maybe not every single one is like, awe-inspiring or anything, but to inspire people, like this is a great place to share kind of some of the journey because it is inspiring to others. And like, it's now actually worked out much better just from a logical sense that I didn't take that high paying job that I actually turned down. Like, so that all like works out. So what you're saying is absolutely true. But an interesting quote that's definitely truth that I read just in a book here, and here's a first principle. It's a book on biology and charge transfer, like in between molecules and cells and stuff. But the quote was effectively, or the statement is effectively that life doesn't wait for like resources. It just waits for an opportunity. Like it just takes an opportunity. So the moment opportunity exists, life will take it. Even if it doesn't have all these other like reagents needed for the chemical reaction, it'll like find a way. And I think that's really true. And so right now, if we do go back a little bit to our archetypal resonances, which the planets are telling us effectively are in effect, it's a moment of profound opportunity and inspiration. There's a whole bunch of expressions, but that is one of the dominant ones. And so, yeah, anything, if you feel inspired to go any direction, I think now is the time to do it. And it's not like you slipped up if you didn't do it yesterday and oh, well, it's over now. There's like a window here, but at some point you won't be maybe working so much with the overall energies. So I think anytime you liberate yourself in that way, you open up all this creative potential. It's like, a spring bursting forth. But right now, specifically on like a millennial time scale is unique. And so the downstream of this going from now to 2032, 2040, end of our lives, I mean, it's going to be incredible. So I'm glad I listened to the call. And yeah, I wouldn't have done it if I hadn't started to awaken that divine feminine and listen to that and really honor that intuition and that knowing and, being okay, making space and kind of that void space to let new things come in. So yeah, it's integrating all this, plurality and polarization, everything is just a construct. Really, there's only just a singularity at the end. That's at least what all these different religions and beliefs would indicate, that there's, God is just, Godhead. It's like a single point of everything. So I don't know. You got to make up your own mind. Sometimes, like, I was watching and listening to this podcast with like, a quote unquote ascended master yesterday. And it was good. There's a lot of truth there. But there was also some moments where I was like, this guy maybe not is not ascended, but people are quick to call themselves ascended masters now. I don't know. I think we're all just working at it, and you just got to share what you can. And if you're doing that from a good, heart-centered place, I think you're doing the world some good. And in general, our community, I would say, is pretty forgiving. And if there's a little mistake here or there, then the day, so long as you're upfront about that, then that's a good thing. But yeah, I think the opportunity is there. It's like, you may not have the resources or the regents, whatever, but the opportunity is there. Take it. Now is the time.
And I think the opportunity really is getting the planets evolving through what we call the Schumann Resonance and the sun. The sun is definitely helping us. So let's dive into a little bit of education for our viewers around the sun, the CMEs coming in, the coronal mass holes, because I follow that deeply because I'm very sensitive. And when I'm feeling something, it's almost like I feel it right before it's meant to hit or something. So it's coming to me and I'm like, oh God, I'm in it and I'm feeling it. And it could be just ascension symptoms from the sun and that energy. So
it's almost like, she doesn't read to me the stocks in the morning. She goes, X1 solar flare overnight, babe. She's like, oh, it's coming in hot. That's
it's
like,
an X, it's going to be an X. It's going to be an X.
Oh, the energy's shifting.
So you follow the Schumann resonance, obviously, and then the solar flare activity. And a lot of people are saying, oh, there's going to be a solar flare, a solar flash that's going to, awaken that, that analogy that we're all using of awakening the waters down the river and propelling humanity forward. And perhaps that could happen. I don't know. The sun's very active right now. You've been following that as well. So what can you share right now with what's going on with the sun and any trajectories for the remainder of the year?
Yeah, I think the important thing to mention as it relates to the sun is the more I research into this, is less this solar cycle, which has been good. I mean, it's effectively been a moderate solar cycle, like middle of the pack, and even maybe slightly below that. Though it is stacking on top of everything that we've done to the planet, which isn't zero effect. Like, again, there's this polarization. Some people think that everything we've done anthropogenically has meant zero and dilly squat. It's like, no, we've had some effect on the planet, but the sun and all these other things are still the main players, but it's stacking on top of that, which is really profound. But really more so than just this cycle, it's like the larger grand maximum, as it's called, or it's also known as the modern maximum. And ever since the Maunder minimum in 1650 or so, going to about 1710, we've had a tremendous amount of solar activity. And based off of our current understanding of the past about 10,000 years or so, it's one of the most active periods of the sun that we've had in that entire time frame. So the Holocene. And we're riding on the backs of that. And this also lines up with basically like the Enlightenment and the Renaissance and all these movements. Yeah, all these movements have been unfolding. So it's not just this cycle, it's everything that's led up to this. We could even add in things like, for example, how in the 40s to 90s, supposedly stopping in the 90s, we've detonated, thousands of nuclear bombs on this planet. Like, and we think that hasn't had an effect on our planet. Like we talk about, uh, car engines and gasoline, and like, yeah, fossil fuels is a big thing, but are we just going to ignore the thousands of nuclear bombs that we detonated and how that's affecting the Earth? Like, no one talks about that. It's like, oh yeah, there's just you explode a nuke and then it's over. If it was like one or two, maybe, but thousands of tests, right? Like thousands, like I think it's like 2,000 nuclear tests that we know of. There's probably undocumented ones because and that would make sense that they would keep testing and not let us know. I don't know. By the way, there's all these things that have just been piling into this moment, which are very powerful, energetic, and it just seems to be a huge wave of energy moving through. And as anyone that's done any sort of ceremony would know, there's an integration that's required if you really want to like, catalyze these effects, integrate them. And so we're still integrating all these energies. There's still integration for the modern maximum, which is 300 years of increasing light energy from the sun. There's still integration of all this powerful nuclear plasma energy that was detonated across the planet for 50 plus years, up until now, the modern day. Still, solar cycle 25 is going to require integration. That's going to probably happen, and kind of hopefully finish up around the solar minimum period. So there's all these things. And yeah, the question, I guess, would be if they are themselves chaotic and non-coherent, then the signals for them will all just kind of flatten out. But if they have some level of resonance to them, then what's that building? And so I think that's what we're feeling. And the Earth doesn't just take in all these energies and do nothing with it. So I think we look geologically back through the record and there's massive events that occurred. And we don't hope anything like that happens. But as far as we know, we haven't detonated thousands of nuclear bombs before, right? But we had Mount Kikai in Japan 7,300 years ago erupt with a massive, like one of the biggest eruptions in the Holocene. You had Thera or Santorini explode, and that destroyed the Minoans. You have huge eruptions that have happened at Campi Flegrei, Toba, Yellowstone, Gokul caldera. We have all these examples across time. So what's happening now on the Earth is geologically unique across this entire age range. And I suppose I should make a video on this now I'm thinking about it. But really, as far as we know, across its 4.5 whatever billion year life, us doing what we've done is completely geologically unique. Maybe it's not. Maybe there's some ancient civilization that did something 200,000 years ago. I don't know. But there's no evidence of that. There would probably be like radioisotope evidence of like past nuclear eruptions and stuff. And also carbon emission evidence, right? So it's probably not the case. So if what we've been doing is geologically unique, is that going to lead to some sort of geologically unique event from the Earth itself? I don't know. There's a lot of resonance between, if we kind of focus more on nukes again, there's a lot of resonance between the geophysical signals that are created from a nuclear blast and also from earthquakes. So they just are very similar energetically. And with resonance, energy transfers without much attenuation. So these are all just kind of breadcrumbs. There's no definitive answer, but the breadcrumbs kind of lead to a hazy picture of something that I'm like, okay, we should be very mindful of this. And if we have an ability to like kind of co-create our reality, then with that mindfulness, we can not just barrel into something unconsciously full steam and suffer maybe consequences of that. But
I absolutely agree with that. We've got to be very wise in decision making and realize the integration process. It's all well and good going to ceremony and having a cup of the deep and getting deep into your healing, there is consequences and a ripple effect after for that integration, a lot more powerful than you probably think it's occurring, because then your consciousness is seeing the bigger picture. And I mean, a lot of light workers are back right now, a lot of old souls, or even if your soul, if you don't think you're a light worker, your light's turned on, you're awake, you're a light worker, I believe. Not to categorize anyone special over someone else, but a lot of us, there are a lot of people are doing the work. Naturally, it's just occurring. It's getting neutralized from our systems and our consciousness is waking up. So that's going to have an effect on the elevation of the consciousness on the planet, as well as the nuclear clearance of that energy being removed. Hopefully it's not too fast for us.
Yeah. And I think also back to the point I made earlier about people are now starting to get more information. We've got it available. There's more of a support network that more or less says you're not crazy, you're not oversensitive, you're just having an awakening. It's like there's nothing wrong with you if you're feeling unfulfilled or flat or searching for something more, or you feel like you don't belong on this planet, or you're here to have more of an impact. Like, that's not a mental health issue. That's you having a
Awakening.
spiritual awakening, right? And people go, oh, so they move out of there's something wrong with me into this is something that I could explore. And I feel like that support network, because it wasn't around 50 years ago, right? Where people were, I don't know what's wrong, and they'd keep it to themselves, otherwise they get told they're strange, weird, worse things. So, I feel like now this time that it is alive, it's more acceptable to want to heal, to want to explore, to want to break out of the karmic or lineage patterns of the family. They talk about the sins of the father repeat with the sons or the daughters, etc. But in families, there can be patterns of trauma. There can be patterns of life lessons. And now we get educated about it and you can go far out. My goodness, in our family, we've got a pattern here about betrayal, or we've got a pattern here about whatever it may be, addiction or etc. People go, wow, I'm going to use my sovereignty, my free will. I'm going to use choice and I'm going to learn to heal. And I think perhaps the timing that we talked about and the planet herself with plant medicine's resurgence. Psilocybin now, like in Australia, like we're strict here, man. I was like, there's so much governance. The government loves to put the boot on our neck and control us. However, they now have approved psychedelics for medical and psychological treatments. I was so shocked when that came through. So the use specifically of psilocybin now in Australia, and who knows what else, but we hear a lot of beautiful programs coming out looking at how different substances from the earth can be helping to soothe people and to heal them, but then also awaken their consciousness. It seems like a beautiful pattern that's all interwoven, wouldn't you agree?
Yeah, and I guess I just realized I forgot to answer your question, but about the solar flash.
Yeah.
But I think these energies, there's multiple ways for it to express. Probably the best way for it to express is that we actually take in those energies and it triggers that awakening process, that mass awakening, or that great like solar flash. And I personally don't really resonate with some solar flash idea or some micronova from the sun or anything. We don't really have any evidence of that from our sun. My intuition doesn't poke me that direction, but this is just me. But the sun is representative of consciousness. And so people, I think this vision maybe that some people have had, or just this idea, because it is resonating with people, it's more representative of the explosion of awakening, less so than the sun actually needing to do something. Because the sun is a chill bro. Like, you can hang out and talk to the sun and he'll talk back to you pretty quick. And I just don't get the sense that the sun is that pissed with us yet, right? Maybe at some point it'll want to just totally nuke the solar system, but I just don't get that sense. The sun seems pretty chill. And at least at this solar cycle, that would be kind of unlikely. That would have been solar cycle 3, solar cycle 19, which are incredibly active, some of the most active solar cycles in hundreds, if not even thousands of years. I mean, I don't know. I don't have all the answers, but it'd be very easy to explain that resonance that people have with this solar flash idea, and perhaps even visions that people have had of that just being a mass explosion of consciousness. Because
Yeah.
there is a lot of this stuff is symbolic in nature. And so, like, I shared a dream on one of my videos recently, which you get to take, it was like an EMP attack, and you could take that very literally, right? Like, oh, they're going to drop an EMP on the planet. And then a variety of people commented an analysis of the dream. And some of them were like profound and made so much sense, made so much more sense than that literal angle. And so, yeah, a lot of this stuff works in that symbolic realm. So is the sun going to do some sort of crazy explosion? I mean, we get a Carrington event about every 50 years or so, typically, just based off the recent historical record. And then super flares seem to be possible based off of data from these Miyake events. But in terms of, and I guess that could be a solar flash. But I think these energies that have been unleashed on the earth and that are also flowering and unfolding at this moment in time, the best thing we could do is to channel those to us, to awaken our inner creativity, our purpose, our passion, and spread that inspiration with others. And that will then be a solar flash of consciousness. At least that seems like a very nice, tidy, harmonious, benevolent path for us to walk down if we want to collectively manifest that. That sounds pretty nice. So
that sounds good. I feel like it's just like the sun's just the heater in the microwave, and it's just popping, it's helping like the earth, like popcorn, pop, 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 and the people awakening, you know, like it's just cooking the earth to heat up the popcorn so everyone can celebrate.
yeah.
So Stefan,
Yeah, I do think the sun likes to turn the knob just a little bit, like, all right, we're going to turn up just a little bit, like, are you ready?
Totally.
The sun has that vibe for sure.
You think, oh, I'm going good, okay, got through that, and then next thing you know, Stefan Burns is saying, this is coming, that's coming, expect this. It's like, oh no. So wild. So the spaceship's coming to Earth. We've been seeing that in the news. What's your perspective on that? Have you seen that?
You mean threeI Atlas, this interstellar?
Yes.
Yes, that the telescope, I forget, I don't think it's Hubble, it's a different one. But yeah, it's picked up the object. They definitely feel like it's correcting its trajectory, etc. It's coming our way. We're seeing it around on the news. Have you what have you heard about that?
Yeah, so I've done quite a bit of research into that. My thoughts are different, but also the same as some people. I mean, so some people think it's literally an alien spaceship, or at least they're bringing up the possibility that we shouldn't ignore that possibility, which I agree with. This is our third interstellar object that's very clearly coming that we've imaged. The first one was a Oumuamua, 2017. Then we had a second one in 2019, I think, and now threeI Atlas, which is the biggest of all of them. And I'm going to make a video on this soon, but what we see, and I've already made one on threeI Atlas, I'm going to make a follow-up though. What we see is that it has this really big coma. And so it was actually first observed here in Maui. I'm on the Big Island right now of Hawaii. It was observed first in Maui, and then follow-up measurements were done on the top of Mauna Kea. And then Hubble just recently imaged it and got the best image of it yet. And we see it has this big coma around it. So coma is the outer envelope of plasma. And most space people will call it gas. They'll say it's the outer envelope of gas and dust, but nothing basically in space is gas. It's all plasma, because you do have some neutral gas, but there's so much light radiation that the moment it hits a gas molecule, it ionizes it. That's why we have an ionosphere up in the upper part of our atmosphere, and why all these other planets have these strong plasma dynamics. And so, yeah, I mean, there's some gas, but it's really principally kind of a what's called a complex dusty plasma. We see it surrounding this object, so you don't even really know how big the object is, but this coma, again, comet kind of comes from coma, is twice the diameter of the Earth. So in some aspects, it's a massive ball of plasma moving through our solar system. And our solar system has these electric and these magnetic field dynamics. The solar wind being kind of the thing that most people know about. Because it's cutting along the ecliptic plane, so it's not cutting through like this. The solar wind generally flows out in this current sheet that's fairly flat along the ecliptic plane. And then you have much less dense plasma up top and below. So it's interacting with that current sheet of the solar wind, which means it's embedded within the electromagnetic circuit of the solar system. And it's twice the diameter of the Earth in terms of its plasma field. So it is going to connect into that circuit, and energy is information. So it has all these interstellar energies encoded within it that's been accruing for tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands, millions of years. I mean, we don't know really anything about it, but clearly for a tremendously long time. It's going to, like, based off of this dynamic, and if you also subscribe to the everything is consciousness dynamic, which I think is very simple, it's going to be bringing in some huge changes starting this. It already is in our solar system. It's already within the orbit, I think, of Jupiter, and swinging by Mars the beginning of October. It's going to be really close to Mars. So yeah, I mean, are aliens going to come out of this thing and like the ships are going to be flying around? I mean, like maybe, but I think it's more going to be awareness of the consciousness that lies beyond our solar system, the potential for that. And I think I think they're already here. So it's more going to be, now that we're recognizing this, we're going to be better able to see the signs and bring this to public awareness. This could be the shock and the opportunity, perhaps. I don't know. Just it's clearly a massive plasmified object, and plasma forms incredibly intricate structures and details and can self-differentiate into hot and cold pockets. And there's a lot of interesting evidence that plasma has a different sort of consciousness that's a lot more intelligent and active than, let's say, like mineral consciousness or plant consciousness, which is like ideas similar to Isaac Bentoff. He talks about that. Like mineral consciousness can take a long time to develop. You see some stone that has kind of like the shape of a face, and maybe Native Americans for thousands of years prayed to it, so it became a little bit of a deity in that area, but it took a long time. I think this threeI Atlas is coming in. It's coming in hot with a bunch of info, and it's going to shake everything up. It also comes in and creates some really crazy planetary geometry right when it has its superior conjunction with the sun relative to Earth. So that Cazimi, it's on the other side. It's like really nice geometry. So yeah, I think what people are talking about now, which is seen as outlandish, maybe the craft don't fly out of it, but the end result, I think, is going to be much bigger than anyone is talking about currently. That's kind of my intuition on that, at least.
That's good analogy. Thanks for sharing that. And that's October coming closer to Mars, is it? Yeah.
Beginning of October for its closest approach to Mars. It's moving at about 62 kilometers per second. I don't know about it having changed its velocity. You know, I've heard some reports of that, but I'm not sure about that. I haven't like double checked it completely. But it'll then be at its opposite to the Earth with the sun in the middle on October 22nd, 23rd. And then it swings by really close to Jupiter, like really close to Jupiter next year. I think it's like April of next year. So if we get our act together, then we'll send one of our spacecraft from Mars or from Jupiter to intersect threeI Atlas and to get some data on it directly. Because we have Maven on Mars and we also have Juno on Jupiter. And both are kind of near their operational lifespan, as they call it. They've gotten a ton of data on them and they're continuous monitors. But we have this interstellar object passing by Mars and Jupiter really close. If it's possible, I don't know, the NASA engineers are going to have to figure that out. But if it's possible, we should do it.
Yeah.
but I don't know if he will or not.
Wow, I love that.
We're in ceremony in Costa Rica around the 20th, so that's really interesting. Just another
Of
month
October.
of energy.
Yeah, everyone's got to watch your channel because you're going to come back with all the info. That's for sure.
So good.
It's almost like a message in a bottle from galactic consciousness, like it's being sent across the stars.
Yeah.
Message in a bottle, just to see how us cavemen down here on Earth will take the information and then maybe a staging into galactic connection. How
That's
exciting
the
flash.
perfect metaphor. I'm going to use that. It's the
Yeah.
absolute perfect, super simple, but I think that's exactly what it is.
Yeah, good. I like my analogy. That was good.
It
It
was
just
good.
dropped in as you were
There you
talking.
go.
I was like, it's like a message in a bottle,
It's
and
already seeping through, right? It's already coming through.
it's already opening up for us.
Yeah. The important thing as it relates to threeI Atlas is that there's this media story right now about aliens and like aliens may fly out and all this. When that doesn't happen, which I think is probably the most likely scenario, then it's going to be like, okay, nothing happened here, nothing to see, let's move on. And the thing is, there actually is going to be this huge influx of galactic consciousness that comes through as a result of its transit and these plasma dynamics. We don't need the alien ships to have this new information, understanding, and consciousness come in. So when maybe, and most likely, these alien ships don't fly out of threeI Atlas, it's not like it did nothing. It really is actually, that's kind of like the ruse. That's like the deception. It's already interacting with us at this level of plasma consciousness and beyond. It will continue to do so until it leaves the solar system.
And it's almost like it's going to lay codes for that awareness. Some people just have thought aliens are bad and they're coming to get us and abduct us and all the rest of it. Maybe this energy, this comic plasma energy, is going to come and lay the codes for the foundations of a galactic awareness. So good.
Yeah, and it's also clearly working with Mars and Jupiter. So those archetypes are going to be infused with this going forward. And that their expression, we would think then, I mean, we're kind of building a little bit of a rickety bridge here, but not too rickety. Their archetypal expression is probably going to alter afterwards. The big question is, how often does this occur? Because our technology is new. So how often are these interstellar things coming through that we weren't aware of? Because we have Oumuamua 2017, I think it's Boris or Borisov, something like that, which is the second one, and now threeI Atlas. Is this part of like a new wave of interstellar objects that's come in? What perturbed them perhaps? Or is this actually a fairly regular thing that we're just now becoming aware of? That's also another thing to consider as it relates to this. But regardless, it's bringing in interstellar and galactic consciousness, and that, yeah, it's going to imprint into the solar system, the information field here, Mars and Jupiter, the sun, Earth, the inner solar. It's going right through the inner solar system. So yeah, it's a big deal.
It'd be interesting. So just, how we raise our vibration and get on the radio station. I'm wondering if these times that these interstellar ships have come, if that's a peak in humanity's frequency or activity from the sun or the solar system. And we're just tuning into that radio station and now seeing it. Maybe there's lots of interstellar ships constantly going past us, but we haven't got the range of vibration to see it.
That probably is true. Yeah. Yeah, because there's different wavelengths of light, like just our eyes, we only see visible light, very narrow spectrum. But we do, because of the electric circuit dynamics of the solar system, it does seem that these comets, or now this interstellar object, provoke solar activity. Because we saw with Oumuamua actually like huge X flares right when it was at perihelion in September of 2017. And it lined up with the location of Oumuamua on the western limb of the sun. And that's where the X flares started blasting off. It was like X13, X17. And this is at the very tail end of solar cycle 24, which was weak. It was a super weak solar cycle, the weakest in like 100 years, and it was like pretty close to solar minimum, because it had its last year's solar maximum in 2014, and now in 2017, as it's getting close to solar minimum, which started like 2018, 2019, is blasting off like double-digit X flares, right? threeI Atlas is expected, like kind of estimated to be 10 times bigger than a Muamua. And a Muamua did not have this coma on it, which again is this plasma field, which is going to directly interact with that electric circuit. So I'm expecting big solar activity this fall as a result of that. And that would specifically be, I guess, window of October through December, really around perihelion, right? That Cazimi, October 22nd, 23rd. And then right afterwards, it's working perfectly at the planetary resonances. We have this peak in Saturn, Neptune in July, August, and then they both retrograde back into Pisces, and then they come back and boom, have their final conjunction in February of 2016. So it's like right in that lull period where everyone was thinking we were going to need a break. Now threeI Atlas is coming through, and it's actually really like infusing that whole time period with a tremendous amount of new energy and unknown and mystery. And then we have this final conjunction between Saturn and Neptune, which is going to, I think, kind of like almost like cement in this new reality that we're living in. So I don't know. These are all speculations, but there's
it's
definitely.
great.
Buckle.
Isn't it great though? It's like you sit here, you go, whoa, well, it's coming in near Jupiter and Mars, both masculine. Very interesting that the Earth is getting basically a lot shown that we're too much in the masculine. Perhaps I love what you talked about, the consciousness of plasma versus mineral. Love that. Reflections to the law of one, where it talks about how the shift in consciousness can be influenced by higher vibrational resonance. So, like you say, going to be very interesting to see what comes through there. I'm excited. Oh, well, Stefan, we've absolutely loved speaking to you today. Thank you so much for what you're doing in your work and being of service. You know, we truly love checking in and touching base with souls that are service to others, you know, with this planet being so often so service to self. It's great to see people who are inspiring, you know, the message of the day, the hope, and of course, just by being who you are, being authentically you, that in itself, very, very inspiring, but then educating and teaching people about all the things that you're passionate about as well. We love it. And there's been a terrific conversation, right?
Yeah, thanks so much for coming on our podcast. So good to meet you.
Yeah, thank you for inviting me on, and pleasure speaking to both of you, Pete and Roxy, and hope that everything goes well. And yeah, we have a lot that's happening. I'm glad I'm not the only one that's connecting to these energies and feeling into them. And yeah, really with the channel, I guess I'm mostly just bringing awareness to the fact that some of this stuff is happening, and it's a fairly comprehensive, like holistic, condensed source. And I think that's fantastic because there's all these people all around the world that have all these tremendous gifts. And once they know something, they can then connect into it. And so that process that's unfolding, I mean, I'm not certainly the only one, but definitely one of the main channels for that now. The process that's unfolding with the community is tremendous. And so, I mean, what we're building together is incredible. And I don't know where that's going to end, but it's certainly really awesome. So everyone that's in this field and in this niche that's doing the work and doing it with service in mind, and then also it's through their own passion, I think it's incredible. So.
Thank you so much, Stefan. We'll put all your links below, and anyone wanting to check out your work and go and follow you and write some beautiful comments under your lives and all the rest of it. So thanks for coming on the podcast today, Stefan.
Thank you so much.